Cheers, guys. Epix 911, welcome to the Elitist Geek VR news for August 7th. And this will include some August 6th items. It was a hella crazy travel day yesterday with almost 7 hours of flight delay. Got home about 3 in the morning. You guys don't need an excuse. I know that. Just filling you in. It was, let's just say, a hectic trip. And by the time I got back, we were going to sleep at 4 a.m., woke up at noon. You get the rest of that story, right? So without further ado, let's jump into the news. Some really cool, exciting stuff. Can't wait to talk about it. The first of which has to do with a product called Mindshow. And the company in question is Visionary VR. They are a VR technology company. They were demoing this at a convention, which is an LA VR convention. VRLA is actually what the acronym is. And it allows you to, it's almost like it reminded me, for anybody who had an Amiga 500, which I know is, I might as well be saying, back when you had a horse and buggy. But anyways, there was a cool little program. I can't remember if it was based off of Photoshop or, Deluxe Paint at that time. Sacrilege for anybody, don't be offended. Small slip of the tongue. But anyways, it allowed you to make your own cartoons, right? So you could do cell shading type graphics with the paint program and then have it flip the screens, a really crude form of animation, to create your own cartoon, as it were, right? With Mindshow, think of that similar, but in terms of VR. So you can record your own stories, you set up the props, the actors, the setting, record it, take part in it, do voiceover work, include your own narration. So limiting, it's not a build your own, game construction set type piece of software. It is strictly a set of tools to just basically have fun with. Are there cool things you could probably create with this? Yeah, I can think of all kinds of things. You could probably, do your own VR media content with this. But if you're thinking it's there to make the next big VR game, hate to disappoint you, but that's not going to happen with this software. But it looks cool for what it does, which is, again, set up, record your own VR content, and then be able to view it. So that is at the VRLA Expo. I will have a link, as always, down in the description below. So the next one, we've talked about this. Anybody who's watched my videos, you guys know I can't stand the discussion point, but it bears talking about one more frickin' time. This one's a doozy, guys. Excuse me, I just need a big little schlock of beer here. We're good to go. This has to do with augmented reality. I was going to say alternate reality. Augmented reality versus virtual reality. And for some reason, the media, authors that work for these media sites, making it a frickin' competition between the two when the two have nothing to do with each other at all. It's not choose one over the other, guys. Wake up, do your research, and come out with thought-provoking pieces on how these two different pieces of technology can move forward. Instead of trying to make it a doom and gloom, you have to pick one because the other's going to die off and be replaced by this one. No, it won't, because the two service two completely different technologies in multiple completely different ways, right? The biggest example of that is Pokemon Go. Not a judgment thing, guys. Not my type of game. I've mentioned that before. But honestly, that is of zero threat to virtual reality. Zero threat. You could argue it's taking sales away, but no. A lot of that is hype. They really haven't made a hell of a lot of money yet because remember, it's free. It's in-app purchases and things, right? The old free-to-play model where they're hoping to make a lot of their money. And yeah, that might be the case, or this might phase out because right now you've got the summer holidays. You've got a lot of kids that are off of school. Pokemon Go is a thing. But look at it. What's going to happen is come September, a lot of the kids have moved on. There's still some adults or some people that are out of school that are doing Pokemon Go, but by October, I predict it will probably have faded away. Not into obscurity, but faded away. So please, guys, for the love of all that is holy, stop making it a AR or VR argument. It's AR and VR, right? They've both got pros, they both have cons, but they're both completely different. So just want to get that out there. Interested to hear what your guys' thoughts are. And this, bit of a rant had to do with Upload VR article, which, listen to the headline, guys. Which is more important, AR or VR? Why ask that question? Like, I'm all for discussion, guys. Like, we can talk about anything to do with VR. I'm open to discussion, even if it's not VR. But you can see how that headline was set up to be adversarial. There's no two ways about it. It was an adversarial headline. Clickbait. Really, bottom line. And they're going to go in different directions, and they're going to get there in different ways. So please, just stop. And with that, we will peaceably move on. So the next article was neat because it wasn't so much an article as a compatibility list, if you will. So wearable.com, and the author is Lily Prashsut. Hopefully I'm not butchering your name, Lily, but I'm pretty sure I just did. Anyway, she has compiled a list of virtual reality games and how most people are going to react. So if you have nausea, which are the worst culprits? Which are the ones not likely to invoke said nausea, right? And it was interesting to look at the games involved, and then I'll give my comments after, but let's look at some of the games. So for high motion sickness, they placed Eve Valkyrie, Incel, Windlands, Adrift, Project Cars, and Radial G. Now, in all instances, the author basically cites the motion of the set piece as contributing to the motion sickness. And I think that's true for a lot of people, but look, not everybody gets motion sickness the same way, right? So it's not as easy as just to say, look, there's one single motion sickness VR subset or subgroup of people. No, because they all have different levels of tolerance and triggers, right? Oh, I hate that word because of other YouTube things we won't get into, but for this, let's use that word. They have different triggers for what triggers that motion sickness or nausea. So I like the idea of the list. I just don't know how, accurate it's going to be. And let's face it, a lot of times these lists, that's not the intent, right? It's simply to get the word out on what could cause a problem, not what will. And I get that. So that's what they mentioned as the high motion sickness games. The ones that they said were moderate, kind of middle of the road, right, included The Climb, Edge of Nowhere, and Hover Junkers. And again, I can see that because while your immediate set piece is moving, i.e. you, in most of those games, the surrounding area is still pretty still, right? Contrast that against the ones that they say are definitely going to give you motion sickness or highly likely to, right? And you've got games that are highly not likely to give you nausea. You've got titles Raw Data, Everest VR, Chronos, The Assembly, and Auto Shield, among some others. And again, that's still being their argument. There's not a lot of stuff happening around you that's moving. It's basically wave objects coming at you, right? So I think it's a neat resource. It's neat to have that out there. It's probably going to assist some people, but is it a 10 Commandments style kind of gospel where this is the list that applies to everyone? No, but I also don't think that was the author's intent. So have a look at that. And, if you're somebody who has motion sickness, let me know what your thoughts on that are. Does Lily have a point, or is she wrong? Would you take one of her least likely games and say it's highly likely to make you motion sick based on your experience? I'd love to know in the comments below. The next thing I wanted to talk about is a company called Baobab Studios. And for anyone who has an Oculus Rift, there's a demo, and it's a free demo. It's called, if I can remember what the hell it's called, Invasion. And it has to do with a cute little bunny rabbit, a white rabbit, some aliens coming down, and you, the spectator, on a frozen pond in the wilderness. Really cute, really awesome CG. It's got that kind of Pixar cartoon look / DreamWorks, right? Anyways, the lady who started that up, and I'm just trying to see if I can find her name, and I don't remember what her name was. But anyways, she is somebody who has worked at multiple companies. She's worked with Zynga, which isn't probably in my top company list because of their model, but that's a separate argument altogether. Anyway, she co-founded this with an individual, and they're working on the sequel to that. They don't really specify how they hope to generate revenue because Invasion was cool, but it was also free. And I don't know how long or how good a sequel would have to be. And I don't know what kind of revenue you could reap from that. So as a company, they both come into this with a lot of capital. So they probably got some cash reserves. But I would be willing to bet within the next 6 months, they're going to start in earnest trying to monetize their endeavors, right? As opposed to just throwing free stuff out everywhere. That, let's face it, takes a lot of human resources to create. There's people who rendered this, programmed it, storyboarded it, you name it. This wasn't a team of two, this was a team of many. So to be able to pay for that infrastructure and all of those kind of costs moving forward, they better come up with some kind of a revenue model. So it'll be interesting to follow that. But, and I talked about this in a miscellaneous video. It's interesting because she talked about, and it doesn't really have anything to do with VR, but as herself being an introvert, because you see her on stage and she totally looks comfortable. And it's just one of those stereotypes of introverts. I know because I am one, and it varies, by people. But me personally, I love being in front of people, whether it's a camera, whether it's on stage, no problem with that. Super comfortable, super at ease. The problem I have, and a lot of introverts, is the mingling afterwards. My business trip was a perfect case in point. 20-minute presentation I gave went very well, absolutely no problem. The 2 hours later that evening, hobnobbing with people and socializing, that was the difficult part, right? Not the presentation, it was the mingling. So anyways, she's got a video. That's why I talk about this, and you'll see she's very bubbly and she's very excited and enthusiastic about her project. I wish her and her company luck. I just hope they come up with some kind of revenue model long term. And look, she's got degrees from Harvard and some other places, so I'm sure that's in the planning. But it'll be interesting to follow. The other reason I bring this up is it is a nice little demo. It is easily one of the best VR multimedia videos that I've seen, right? In terms of the experience, the length even. So I would definitely like to see more like that, if not from their company, then others. And that's Baobab Studios. The next article deals with a South Korea tech company who created TwoEyes VR, and their name is Arc Interactive. Again, they're from South Korea. It is a cool little camera, does 4K, 360-degree content, so you can live stream, you could do YouTube stuff. $399 US. Not something I could afford right away, but probably something I'm going to entertain, within the next year. If those prices drop even more, they'll never get into webcam territory probably. Well, I should never say never, right? But if they do come out, that's something that I'm going to consider, because it would kind of be neat. We talk about VR to actually offer VR content on the channel, whether it's a one-off thing or something that becomes a regular thing. It's definitely intriguing for me to kind of look into more and investigate. So yeah, it's basically 32 gigs of storage on the camera. It does 360-degree 4K, and the form factor is super tiny. It basically looks like, two of the Oculus Rift remotes. Looks great, nice and small, nice and compact. Well, that's it for the weekend news. If there's anything more that comes out later tonight, I'll probably roll it into the next day, which I will have on my more normal release schedule. As always, guys, cheers, have an awesome one, and we will see you on the flip side.